Coach, go ahead and make an opening statement about the Rutgers game and the Big Ten tournament overall, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Yeah, well, we're excited to get to Indianapolis and get started. It should be a great event. We're excited that the event was able to be pulled off, moved to Indianapolis. Great thing for the league and the teams in the league. And even in an odd year, I think the Big Ten stood out above and beyond any other conference in college basketball all season. Probably had the most complete regular season of any league in the country. And, to the credit of our administrators, doctors, medical teams, it gave a chance to, showcase what was probably, the deepest league in maybe the history of the Big Ten Conference in terms of the depth of the league and the quality of games. So the tournament should be interesting. There's a lot of different teams playing well right now. And I wouldn't be surprised at all to see, a number of different teams advance and have an opportunity to win the Big Ten championship here in Indy. For us, we have a difficult matchup with Rutgers. We've played them twice and, haven't had a whole lot of success. Our most recent game, they really dominated the back, 10 minutes of the first half and in the second half, after we got off to a pretty good start. So, for us, we're really trying to concentrate on being as good as we can here for the third time around as we approach them, most importantly on both ends of the floor, being strong and tough. They're a tough-minded group, and they've got some, veteran guys right now that played a lot of games together. And I know they're excited to get through the regular season just like everybody is and get into this setting. So, we have to be ready to go on Thursday night.
Jeff.
Hey, Coach. As far as playing in Lucas Oil, does your team get a chance to actually practice in the dome? And I know you've coached in a dome before. What adjustments do you have to make for that setting?
Well, I don't believe any team has an opportunity to get on the floor. I'm not sure about the games today, but we won't have an opportunity to get on the game floor until our warm up. I think like every other arena, most arenas this year were empty. This one will be big and empty as well. I've played in Lucas Oil before, and I'm not sure the dynamics of the setup, but it's a great event. I mean, I told yesterday that, I think Lucas Oil is probably one of the world's great sporting facilities. And to be able to play a game there will be an awesome feeling for our players. In the league in general will be a great setup. But, depth, perception, playing in domes sometimes offensively, I think they can make a bigger deal out of it than shooting the ball. But, at the end of the day, I think when the game's up, it'll feel somewhat normal just because, all of us have played in empty arenas all year.
Tom.
Archie, can you give us an update on where we stand with Armand and Race, and if you're hoping that they can play tomorrow night or not?
We're hopeful these guys continue to improve. Race is probably a little bit more banged up even than Armand right now, recovering with the nose and the face, and having turned his ankle in the second half against Purdue. It's really kind of eliminated him from being able to work with us a ton. So knowing Race and know how he's been all season, in particular here these last few weeks, as he hasn't been 100%. If he can go, he'll go. He'll definitely probably give it a try. Armand is still wait and see. He's day to day, hasn't done much, has done a little bit of shooting, which he did a little bit of shooting last week as well. But we're not counting on Armand being available.
Bob?
Yeah, hi, Archie. Given the circumstances, the odd circumstances of this season, how much of a mental health challenge has this season been for you and for your players? And how have you tried to address any issues that may have come along?
I think Bob is probably the one really under talked about or I guess, from a perception standpoint. I think these guys play the games, you watch the games, you talk about them like it's a normal season. But the surroundings for every player, and I know our players in general, from the end of a year ago today, or a year ago last year at this time when the season was canceled, leading into, are we going to have a year? Are we allowed to come back to campus? Is it worth coming back to campus? Are we going to be allowed to work out? Just a lot of uncertainty. And no preseason really, with preseason games, scrimmages, exhibition games, a longer non-conference schedule to get your team prepared and get younger players opportunities to play. I think all that was probably discussed on how challenging it is, but to think about, a freshman class coming to college and never walking on the campus, never leaving their room. You get into a routine of the stress of the season and preparing and practicing, but where's their outlets coming from? You realistically are eliminating them from trying to do what they would normally do to the best of their ability, which is go out with their friends or hang out with their families. You're trying to just, really kind of keep guys in a smaller bubble, even than they're used to. And, I think for the younger players, it's been very, very different. For the older players who have had a normal college experience so far, it probably was frustrating. But we kind of had to hang in there and get used to it. And I think as you got used to it, you started to figure out your players were exhausted, in and around Christmas time. It felt like late January, guys weren't going home for the holiday breaks. You're practicing on Christmas Eve and day. You're traveling on Christmas Day. And just the onslaught of when it started and getting the games in and then getting to the regular season at that point in time was a little overwhelming. I think as you got into maybe the Christmas holiday was over and you started to move into late January, February, I think everyone was probably in a pretty good routine as the second semester started. But I think frustrating. I think waking up every day for 6 months and getting tested, whether you get home at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m, or, win, lose, or draw, on a Sunday afternoon, you're not going home to see your family because you have a 12 noon COVID test. The nerves of, contact tracing at some points in time during the year. There's just a lot of elements that kind of just come into play that didn't have anything to do with basketball or, hey, are we going to be ready to practice or play today? I mean, you're constantly just trying to keep your guys upbeat. You're kind of keeping them pepped up. At the same time, you're trying to warn them, when you be careful who's coming to the games with you after the game. You don't know who those people have been, just conversations like that you would never think about ever having. You had to constantly remind them. But I think for our team, did a great job with our administration, our medical team of, number one, just helping these guys along the way, giving them, the ability to, communicate when there's problems and us communicating with them. But, I think going through the season for us, and having the constant testing allowed us to have the games and the season the way it was. But I also think that the restrictions over the last 6 months that have been put on 17, 18, 19-year-old kids, is really almost unprecedented to try to board them up a little bit the way that we have to be able to complete the year. And, a deep breath is probably coming for everybody that's been involved in winter sports. But, I know from our standpoint, it's been a very mentally taxing year. And it didn't have anything to do with basketball. I think a lot of it is, how do you escape the monotony and the routine of what we had to do every day?
Right. Thank you.
Last question, Zach.
Archie, I know Miles Johnson's a guy that you've talked about just kind of admiring his game. I'm curious in particular, and I don't know how kind of far back you've studied his season. It seemed like one of the big changes for him is he's just not getting into foul trouble as much for a guy who obviously is in maybe some of those high leverage situations that might lend themselves to fouls. Early in the season, he was getting 4, he was getting 5 a lot. I think he's only maybe once or twice in Big Ten play even gotten to 4 fouls. Just have you seen a difference in maybe the way he approaches cleaning the glass, protecting the rim, and playing the way he wants to play, but without committing fouls and getting himself into that kind of trouble?
I would say just based on how they're playing at least from our standpoint in conference play, one of the things that's an advantage to him is staying between 15 feet in the rim. You know, he doesn't have to get extended very much. They're not bringing him out and being as aggressive as they usually are at one time, maybe in his career. He doesn't have to be exposed as far away from the basket. And I think if you keep a guy like him in between the rim and his man, that's where he's at his greatest strength. He has incredible hands. I mean, incredible hands. You also add in incredible reach. I mean, he can reach across people's bodies to one hand rebounds, offensive rebounds, blocking shots across the lane. You know, coming across, he's got unique ability with great hands, shot blocking ability. He's physical. He's very mobile. And to me, he's not being put in situations realistically where, you know, he's having to move around a lot. He's protecting the rim and the paint, you know, to me a lot more than in maybe in years past where they've been more aggressive with him or their big guys. To me, they've kind of funneled everything a little bit to him, a little bit maybe even like Illinois does with Kofi. You know, you take your chances a little bit maybe with some shooting or mobile front court players that give him problems. But you know, when it comes to the overall game of being able to keep him where he's good, I think they do a pretty good job of that. At this point, he's also very experienced. He's played a lot of games. He goes against terrific players every night. So he, you know, to me, his experience level on what he needs to do to be successful is good. And, you know, I said it before and I'll say it again. I think he's one of the, if not the best defender, interior defender in our conference. You know, he's got to be right up there at the top.
Coach,